we've talked about the physicality. We talked about the guys flying around. How big of a chip is going to be on their shoulder after the performance that we saw out of that group a year ago?
I mean, it better be massive, right? And I think this is a better question for you. I mean, because and I'm going to go deeper here now. Just again, you kind of threw me a little compliment in the intro. So one of the biggest things that I've always had respect for about Ohio State is they always got the big names. But they always figured out a way how to humble them and buy into the attitude. They were always very, 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 very talented, but they were also always very, very disciplined, physical, and just they were the total package when it came to everything that I believe in as a football player: blue collar, hard nosed, physical, tough. Didn't take much shit. And I always appreciated that playing Ohio State, right? I knew it was going to be heading into it. You knew what you were getting, right? And I think uncharacteristically for specifically the defensive side of the ball last year, huge step back, and we hit on that at length, right? So I'm going to kind of throw this to you, like how big, knowing the history that I think went into that side of the ball for the past 10 years, I could say probably.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how like if you're in that locker room now, if you're going back and having a chance to talk to these guys, like how much is that going to matter, and how much does that play a role in it?
Plays a huge role. I mean, there is a standard, and I think that was evident in the way that Ryan handled the offseason and the coaching staff changes that he made
Mm-hmm.
defensively. Like that did not meet the standard. And like, you probably got group chats with guys that you played with. I'm in a couple of them, and some of the commentary that we had, it was almost astonishing seeing what that group looked like compared to what we looked like and what we believed in.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a decision that it was not going to be like that anymore. And I think that they really set the tone. But going back to the psychology of games, like this is the one, like this is the boogeyman for them. Like this is where you have a couple of bad plays in a row, and all of a sudden you're replaying the game from last year in your head. Like they can't get to that point. They can't mentally let themselves
Right.
get there. But if I was in that locker room, chip on my shoulder, dude. I mean, I would be practicing like a madman. I would feel
Mm-hmm.
bad for the guys who were on scout team during the week because I'm hurting somebody, just
Yeah.
like flipping my mentality to go out on a Saturday so I can inflict pain during the game. Like it's I think there has to be a big edge, and we'll be able to tell early on in this game. Like, I mean, I think Michigan's going to throw haymakers coming out the gate. Ohio State better be throwing them too. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's what this game is going to feel like early on for these teams.
I think a guy who I've watched all year and I have a ton of respect for is Tommy Eichenberg at
Phenomenal.
the linebacker position. I think he's been a very big uh factor in the shift of that defense, and I think specifically the front seven, their physicality, their discipline, and his abilities specifically as a run stopper
Mm-hmm.
on a consistent basis. He's always around the football. It's fun to watch him rally, make tackles sideline to sideline in the gaps, physical downhill running game. Doesn't matter. He's there and always around it. So he's been a guy who I'm going to really be watching as well this weekend.
Yeah, no, and Tommy Eichenberg, I'll give you this story on him. You go on the message boards and you went on Twitter last year, and there were folks that said that Tommy Eichenberg couldn't play football at Ohio State. They didn't think he was a good enough player. And then you get to the Rose Bowl, and here's the fun stat I like to repeat: is he had 17 tackles in the Rose Bowl, and that was the most tackles in a game for an Ohio State player since Joshua Perry had 18 tackles in 2014 against Penn State. So fun stat there. Tommy Eichenberg's been balling though. I mean, this guy's
Yeah.
always around the football. He flies around. You can feel his leadership. He exudes it. That's going to be the side of the football I'm most interested in, certainly, as we watch this game. To get into some topical items before we start to wrap things up, one of the edges in this one is, I think, the chestiness of that Michigan team after they won a year ago, because you got standing on third, thought he hit a triple, but he didn't comment. You had they're a finesse team, they're not tough comment. Um, you've been in situations, I'm sure, where there's been bulletin board material. How does a player and a coaching staff parlay that into an added edge in the game plan?
Yeah, It's really interesting, and I think going back to that comment I made about Ohio State, that was one team that you really never tried to give bulletin board material, because at least when Urban was there, I knew he would use the shit out of it.
Dude, he would make it up.
Yeah.
He would make up quotes.
Just just make up bullshit. That's awesome.
That's what he did. Bro, I'm telling you,
awesome.
we come into the locker room, there'd be printouts taped on our lockers. And he's like, this is what they said about you. This is what they think about you. And then after the game, he'd be like, nah, they didn't say that shit. I'd be like, bro, what's wrong with you?
You were talking shit to me, and I'm like, I don't know. I never said that. That is so funny. Oh man. But yeah, so like Ohio State's one of those programs that I just would never do it. And for me, some of it worked, some of it didn't. I think I was kind of the guy that, at least personally, just never really used that. Like, yeah, if everyone's gonna talk shit, I'm just ready to go out and play. But I think that there's definitely a segment, and I've played with a lot of guys where I think it definitely does matter. And you make a great point. I mean, if I'm this Michigan team, I'm a little more humble than that. You know what I mean? It came in, beat the hell out of you guys. But you sit there and you look at this, you're like, oh, yeah, really as good as the last game. But still, history plays a role in this. And there's a whole lot more O's on the list when you go down of who's won. I think you're going to have to keep scrolling for a little bit before the next M shows up
at least
on the winner of this game. So, it's there. You would expect a little more humble pie. But then again, I think I could say this in confidence. It's Michigan. So
you said it.
We'll see. I did say it.